Thank you all for coming. My name's Theaster. We're here today for me to hold court, which means that you guys are going to ask me questions and I'm going to answer them. Any questions?
What motivated you to get into real estate? How did you know that that was going to be such a good thing to do?
You went straight to it.
Yeah.
Real estate ain't real estate. Real estate represents how one has stake in the physical world. It happens through the acquisition of land or the acquisition of buildings or mountains or waters, and depending on your position in relationship to that land, you can start or stop things. When I found that I didn't have access to a certain kind of museological space, that museums weren't interested in the objects that I created early in my career, I thought I had to create a system whereby I could show these things. So I bought a building. The MCA had a building, the Art Institute had a building, then I had a building and I could show my things. So it started out just as a kind of way of imagining that in the absence of a certain kind of opportunity, there's still opportunity. Part of the opportunity was that there were these things that where I lived, that black space didn't have value, combined with the fact that American space in general didn't have value in that moment. So it was like a double opportunity. And normally other kinds of people besides artists take advantage of those opportunities and then they sell that land to artists, and all of a sudden there's a real estate developer and it looks like he's an arts lover when in fact he's just a real estate mogul. Why wouldn't artists be real estate moguls so that we would all have spaces where we could show and make our work? And so I think that I've been trying to figure out a way to not just make the thing, but make the thing that houses the thing. Make the thing that would allow me to produce things into perpetuity. Make a thing that might make a thing on its own and doesn't need my hand at all. And the creation of those kinds of vehicles by which things could be shown or displayed or produced or resources generated, that it seemed like for an artist in a very unstable world that you would want some way of ensuring that you could continue to do the thing that you do. And real estate is one of the ways that you do it. As a result of having a lot of real estate, you can enable other people to do other kinds of things. Anything might happen. I've decided that in Chicago we have an electric company, it's called ComEd. ComEd has some old buildings. There's a Mayor Daley, our former mayor, and Mayor Emanuel, they both paid a visit to where I live on Dorchester. They both said, God, we love what you're doing, can we be helpful? I said to them both, I really want that ComEd building. And within 2 months, both Daley and Emanuel had called ComEd and said, there's a guy interested in this building that's behind his house. Is there any way you could give him some consideration? A brother called me, an African American. Brother called me. His name is Tim Hughes. Tim Hughes is the Senior Vice President of Real Estate for ComEd. Tim Hughes says, hey, my Senior Vice President of Civic and Governmental Affairs has said that we should have a meeting with you. Can you come to ComEd? So, yes. We're going to give you this building because apparently you are somebody. The building is going to cost us $300,000 in remediation. We're going to give you the building. We're going to give you the building for $80,000. We're going to distribute. We're going to distribute this 220 to all of our other users because when you activate this building, it makes us look good and it provides a new service to the neighborhood. So we're going to charge them more money for power. It's brilliant. It's like we're kind of giving it to you, but we're kind of not losing any money. It's brilliant. But they're a for-profit model. So then I said, all right, well, 80,000 sounds great. How soon can we close? He was like, really? I was like, yeah. He was like, You're not gonna try to bargain me down? I was like, no, 80,000 south, it's a great building, it's great. He was like, well, I got 7 other buildings. No, for real, he said that. So I was like, well, I want to know him. He sent me all these buildings, a list of them. They're gorgeous, you know, New Deal buildings, right? Like this moment when not only was America poor and depressed, but also we were increasing our need for power, like freaking air conditioners were happening and deep freezers. You know, people were still hunting and like putting deer in their deep freezer in the basement. ComEd power need was growing. They would build these things in neighborhoods, and so that the big machine wouldn't offend the neighborhood, they would try to make it really nicely. Well, you know, a lot of these buildings were like by the disciples of Frank Lloyd Wright, so they're beautiful, kind of prairie-style buildings. So he was like, well, you know, if we could do that, then, you know, we could probably strike a deal, and each one of these would be $50,000. Now, these buildings aren't in Dorchester, and there's a part of me that's like, well, it's a little bit off mission, and, you know, I really want to kind of leverage my resources in one place, and it seems like it's going really good. What can I do with these 5 to 7 buildings? And I decided that I would make each one a work of art. And it's like, well, jetty is absolving into the sea. You know, where is the new land art? Could this be a model? Could I make something like a Morris work inside of an old ComEd, a kind of site-specific? It'd be one thing into perpetuity. And what would happen if I bought this building for $50,000, decided, I don't know, I'm going to turn it into a hammam and invite Rashid Johnson to come and read The Dutchman in it, right? Right? And so I make hammam. And then I call Daniela and I say, Daniela, look, Daniela, raise your hand. Daniela works for White Cube. And our price point is now like between $100,000 to $250,000. This year, I wanted to go from $250,000 to like $1 million to $2 million per work. I got to mix it up for some of y'all who've been here already. How can I get to that? Well, the New Yorker came out this week. That might help. If MoMA gets off their ass and go and buy that work, being in MoMA might be really helpful. Can I make a leap that would not only explode the imagination of what the work could be? Because I've been kind of, you know, growing, but not really. Just kind of like creating some signature works that would allow me to be known into perpetuity. But I think that these land works could be really interesting. And what would happen is, let's imagine that each one of these is in like, this one's in a Hispanic neighborhood, this one's in like old Greek town, these 4 are in black neighborhoods, but they're not the neighborhood that I'm in. I invest $500,000 in each building to make the work of art. I say to Daniela, I'm in for $550,000. And my status in the art world is changing. You guys will get a different percentage on these pieces. People want them. I mean, I don't know. But they're going to be hard to move because they don't move. Are there any collectors in here? You can feel comfortable today. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to target crazy collectors who, you know, we like pre-screen them and say, what's your name? Hey, Adam. I want to make a new body of work. I'm doing your job for you. You paying me for this. Adam, I want to make a new kind of work, a radical work. I'm not selling my buildings on Dorchester, but I do want to make real estate art. Since I'm the real estate artist, can I make real estate art? And we're going to call it an edition. It's an edition of 7. They're all in Chicago. And this is how we're going to do it. You buy this building. it's a $3 million work, less my 550. And White Cube gets 30% since I'm brokering the deal right now.
We'll discuss it later.
I want you to be the first one, Adam. And what you buy is, you get the piece, but then the piece goes into a kind of trust, right? And it's bought with the conditions that, Adam, you will commit $100,000 a year into perpetuity. It's like, there are these cooperatives in Chicago. To buy the cooperative is really cheap, but the management fees are $17,000 a month.
Wow.
It's like, well, we're not exclusionary. It's just an old building, and it's hard to maintain. So it kind of like prices certain kinds of people out. Becomes part of this land trust, and now it's being paid for. Like all of the upkeep on it is being paid for. And there's like other things that are like abandoned around it. Things are doing okay, but they're not. But then there's like the Theaster Gates, Rashid Johnson, Adam, Lindemann collaborative project. We'll call it the hot house. That in a way, let's say that this is my form. I'm a potter. Being a potter is so great. And people keep saying I'm a potter and I'm a planner. But that doesn't really mean anything except that I have the capacity to leverage those forms to try to create new forms. If we took pottery out and we put in real estate finance, this is what I know really well. I know real estate finance and wood. I know. That one of the challenges maybe is that sometimes we can be so form specific that the kind of expanse of creativity, we actually don't ever leverage it completely. So I'm saying, well, everything is raw material. Like when we do research on a project, we have to learn all this stuff. We learn about, like, I want to make an exhibition on knots. And so we learn everything we can about sailing knots, and then we go sailing, and then we're making knots. And it was like, we're reading all these books on like the history of like New England knots, and the history of like German knots, and Huguenots. But we're doing that so that we can make knot paintings because we're a painter. And I'm like, well, now you know everything about the form. You could be a fucking knot maker. Why not just be a knot maker? A nigga knot. So I think land is raw material. And it's really fun to play with. It's fun to transform, and I really just like that a lot. Next question.
Talk about pottery more.
Yeah. Pottery. What can I say about pottery? All of my pottery heroes were from places other than where I was from. And so the way that I knew that I was making a great pot was by replicating those forms. So, I'd make a generic Bernard Leach pot. I did that for a while, and I got pretty good at that. And then I tried my hand at like a Shoji Hamada pot. And then I got okay with that. Japanese form. And then Peter Volkes, Paul Soldner. And I wanted to make like a radical pot, big, burly, manly pot. And it was like after I went through the Brits and the Japanese and the Chinese and the American white boys, I found Dave. And for Dave, you know, there were all these other things at stake for this slave potter in the 1850s, like being literate because part of his slave task was to like run a typesetting press newspaper. So he's literate, makes him a good slave. And he had a certain amount of freedom as a result of that. And he was also a potter, and they would loan him to their cousins. He would go to other plantations and make pots. A kind of freedom. A kind of freedom. He would write poems on the shoulders of the pots. I wonder where is all my relations, peace and love throughout the nations. Couplets. He was the Sidney Poitier of potters. Just a little bit, not too much. I was asked to do an exhibition around his pots, and the curators got really excited to bring in all these Dave pots from all over, intersperse my works. You know, maybe I would make a pot like Dave's. That was the historical curators, like, oh, maybe you could like replicate a Dave pot. You know, you could like really like get into it and replicate a Dave pot, hold it. And didn't want to do that. So I created a gospel choir, and we wrote a hymnal, and you know, made some drawings. And it was really Dave that helped me sing, like you know, I kind of embodied Dave. I'd be like, you know, I would make up people in the past, made a character, Shoji Yamaguchi. He was a good Japanese black potter kind of guy, made him up. And then Dave was a real dude, so I didn't have to make up Dave. I could just embody Dave. I could try to imagine what it was like to be a slave potter. Then I created a project called Soul Manufacturing Corporation. But all three of them, in a way, were like things outside of me. Like I needed permission to create something, and then I could like jump into that something, and then that jumping into someone else or another corporate structure or whatever would help me get out. You know, it'd be like smoking weed. I'd create a structure to help me create a new form. I feel like all three of these talks today, I've been talking a lot about structures and vehicles, apparatus, and form. But Dave was really good. Dave was really good for me. I'm trying to think of these songs that I wrote. This was made for Mrs. Jones. This was made for Mrs. Jones to kill the cat and bury the rose. My name is Dave. My name is Dave. My name is Dave. My name is Dave. My name goes here. My name is Dave. My name goes there. My name is Dave. Dave, Dave, My name is Dave. 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 My name goes here. My name goes there. My name.
Travel well, my brother.
Right on, my brother. Yeah. Any other questions? It's really nice. Hey, Karen.
I have a question about the relationship between trust and leveraging. I see the word there, and I would be curious if you could elaborate on that a bit, please.
Yeah. Trust. Leverage. I'll talk about leveraging first, because it's the word that I use the most. The reason I use the word leverage is because leveraging assumes that there's a weight, and that weight is too heavy to pick it up one-to-one. And so to leverage is to like this. Or to find that, oh, the wood is actually much easier to move this on. What I'm gonna do is not leveraging. People leverage for lots of different reasons. There was a group called Link in New York. My friend ran it. Leveraging investments in creativity. Is Kenny still here? Judy Lee left. That leveraging has to do with like, I have this, I want that, I'll use this to get that, and something in the middle has to happen. Something amplifies my one to make me stronger, or make me have more money, or make me. And I think I use that word because there are things that I want to do that are bigger than me, and I need help. And so I leverage what I have to get this thing that I want. The challenge with leveraging is that sometimes the apparatuses that help us leverage are not worth trusting. Like the bill paid people, the money changers. Like, will advance you a loan on your car or on your money. And we found out that like a lot of people use those systems to buy Christmas presents, and then they remain in debt for years using the system. Credit is a leverage that you shouldn't trust. Unless you feel like there's equity between you and the thing that you're leveraging against, the thing that's loaning. I could also imagine that like, when I think about the black monks, I don't sing by myself, I sing with the monks. I leverage their voices to make big things happen. They get paid. I'm the master monk. But it's reasonable that one of the monks could say, well, I sing better than you and you're leveraging my voice to get something for yourself. And so the question of trust within the monks, right? It's always like a kind of like checking in, like, are we good? Like, is there equity here? Is this the good, is it a good pool? Are you a potter? You guys potters? Potter. It's like, if I have a really plastic clay body and it's the right temperature and the wheels at the right speed I can pull like a beast. If I don't, and I just feel like there are moments when trust can be compromised. When there's greed, when you're talking about leverage, and I think greed governs a certain kind of credit. It governs this real estate stuff that yeah, I feel like I spend a lot of time checking in with people because I borrow a lot from lots of people in order to make the things that I do happen. There are times when I feel like I benefit more than the people who I hire. So I give them bonuses. I'm constantly trying to reconcile. Yeah, maybe it has something to do with like one's willingness to reconcile. It's like greed is inevitable, it's all around, but maybe the reconciliation helps with like balancing. Then it goes from leverage to like balance or something.
Do you want another piece of paper, the answer?
I do.
Let me get you
I
one.
would love that. I'll take questions, I don't have to write. I could also just say, holding court, some of you guys might not know how this happened, but it was born because 2 years ago I was asked to be the armory artist, and that in those moments you can get really busy, and I decided that I wouldn't be really busy, that my gallery would have a responsibility of everybody who wanted to talk. They would come to this table, and I would sit at the table, and there were 15-minute appointments, and I would do that for 4 hours for the 3 days of the armory. I would just sit and hold court. And it was my way of being platonic in this non-platonic art fair. And it worked mostly. But then, people wanted to buy the table, they wanted to buy the chairs, they wanted to buy this. We can cut this up in squares tonight. $5. $5. Anybody willing to buy $5? Questions?
Do you think about other Dorchesters?
Yeah, so this is, again, a question of, say, I'm always thinking about this, like, there's the thing, and then it's like, what the thing represents. I want to keep saying that Dorchester is a thing. It's a thing. It's a group of houses. It's a real community. There are neighbors. There's a real ecology, a circumstance that happens as a result of it being there. But there's something like above Dorchester, I was trying to demonstrate something with Dorchester. A way of thinking more than it was about the creation of a community. It was like, oh, what would happen if this occurrence happened with this occurrence, and those things created a confluence of new occurrences, and then the grass would be mowed, and a sister on the block would have a job. But it's like, I wasn't intentional about making Dorchester a thing, right? So it's been written about some, and now people believe that my area is known as Dorchester. It's not. It's just a street. But I understand that there's value in naming things, and that if I was trying to call attention to a particular place that was known for violence and other things, what would I have to do, right? So I'll get to museums in a minute. So Dorchester is a thing, but it also represents something. Like what would happen if a private creative person talked to their neighbors and did stuff. If that private creative person had a relationship with the Department of Streets and Sanitation, the mayor's office, other private people that had extra tulips in their yard, and they had Japanese lilacs, and they would plant them. What would happen if the middle class started to was embedded in the working poor's class? Like what would happen? And so I feel like Dorchester represents something, and in its representation, there's the capacity that it could be aspirational, and other people can like grab it and be like, oh shit, it ain't even that good. Dorchester ain't even that good, and I can get buildings for cheaper in Cleveland, and and I'm smarter than Theaster or whatever. But it's like, you know, kind of creating demonstrating a work, and I feel like this is like a great tension, because sometimes I don't want to represent shit, you know, but it's like a certain kind of burden, and for people who have the freedom to just make the thing and not have to worry about the burden of black people or carrying all poor people with, you know, it's just like, you know, this is Virgo and this is Aquarius. I don't know, whatever that means. It means something. And so my hope is I'll get a couple $1 million from a large foundation. And now that this is a thing, I want them to be like, well, what did you do? I want to spend a couple $1 million reflecting on what just happened, so that other people can know what it represents, but also they'll know what are the confluences necessary to make different kinds of things happen. And then it doesn't need me anymore. I want the thing, I want the representation to become aspirational enough that then people are just compelled to make their own things happen. But that'll happen in a lot of ways. Like there's a staff of 30 of us who are all learning this thing. There are these kids from Harvard that are going to come this summer and learn this stuff. They'll become faculty members at Harvard and they'll teach this stuff. It'll be like post-new urbanism or whatever. New urbanism. Yes?
So how does that relate to the work? I mean, the staff, the interns, the dissemination of a model or some form or process, and then the work. And you as an individual artist, or however you see yourself, like how do you picture it? What do you see for it?
Can someone else answer this?
I thought that was the work.
Okay. Can you define the work?
I see the work as the process
Okay.
and a sort of economic and social process and practice. And real estate as a means to an end.
What constitutes the work? That's one question. That's like, is it the pot that I made, that I threw? I sat down. This ain't working. I sat down. I want to get this right. I don't need this.
We're cutting it.
Get some real time. I sit down, I make a pot. It's mine. In Japan, somebody else trims my pot. It's mine. It's ours. Someone else fires all the time. They know that kiln like nothing. it's mine, it's ours. Someone else glazes the pot. It's ours, it's mine. My name is Dave. My name goes here. Dave's name means more than other names. So Dave constitutes a kind of economy. An economy of ability, of name recognition, of ingenuity, I don't know how to spell that, of prestige. The trimmer of the pot says, I ain't trimming that motherfucker's pots no more. I can make a better pot than him. So the trimmer leaves my shop. And they go and make their own pots. And they trim their own pots. And what they find is that their pot ain't worth what my pot is worth. Then the trimmer says, I gotta make a lot of pots to try to keep up with the salary that I had when I was trimming his pots. All I had to do was trim. So the trimmer needs people. Then the trimmer got a dilemma. Oh my God, I'm just like Theaster. That at some point, the contemporary art world didn't really care about that. At some point, they started asking, like, how important is the idea in relationship to the object? Relational practices said, are objects are they important at all? So one part of what you're asking seems to be about what do things mean to me? Which is a great question. And depending on what the work is, we could assume that we all mean the same thing when we say the work. Like, we could mean that we're talking about the pot. But in fact, I'm talking about the ceramic manufacturing company. I own the ceramic manufacturing company, therefore every pot that gets made is my pot. That could be one. Then there are moments when I want to make the pot, just for kicks. I don't want nobody else touching my pots. I want to fire my own kiln. But I don't feel like whether I make the pot or someone else makes the pot in total matters. What's important to me is that if somebody makes the pot, that they feel valued for the contribution they made to the pot. If they were the trimmer, if they were the firer, all that. Another part of me feels like this whole thing is the work. And 90% of the work is not monetized. Dorchester takes up a lot of money. A lot of money. And 10% of our time constitutes 90%, 100% of the resource that's necessary to fuel the other work that we all do. There's a potter in Omaha named June Kaneko. Important potter. He makes big things. He says, Theaster, I don't keep other artists working for me for more than 2 years. After 2 years, they can make like me, and they become resentful. That for my system, it's better that I just keep training great potters, and then they go on. And I couldn't understand that. I was like, man, you crazy? You know, there are brothers on the south side, they need jobs. I can't fire brother. I'm like, he gonna shoot me. What you mean you gonna hire me for 2 years and then send me on? But there are other things inside your question. Things that have to do with, how do we value other people? You know, how do we recognize other people? And I think about those questions a lot when I talk to craft people and when I think about the market. Because all of this assumes that, like, there was a time when I had a guy working for me, we worked on buildings. Nobody was interested in art. I paid him $35 an hour. I made an extra $1,000 per month. when my $1,000 would run out, he wouldn't work for me anymore. And then I'd call him back the following month at the top of the month because I get paid once a month by the university. And I'd say, I got another $1,000 and I got this wood, we could work on the house some more. When he'd be done in like 10 days. My $1,000 would cover him for 10 days, and then I would have to work for the rest of the month gathering resources, gathering materials, and then reading up for this really amazingly skilled person. He continued to work for me when my art practice blew up. So I would say, hey man, would you help me build this table? Just a table. It's made out of old, it's like a 70s school that was built in Chicago. Cubby boards, they were the doors to a cubby board and some plywood covering the wall. I think the work is valued at $150,000. He went from $35 an hour to about $50. He resented his investment in that table. There was a way in which he didn't want a check, he wanted something else. And he kind of wanted something I had. And he doesn't realize that his hand alone won't get him what I got. And so the real grapple is a very complicated grapple. It's a very complicated grapple. Because the invention of other kinds of forms outside of that form is what makes that thing valuable. I have to stay here all night with you. But not like that. I'll take one more question.
There's still just 24 hours in a day. Do you find at any time you're overextended, you're getting a little thinner than you want to be?
So maybe this is all in the crux, like what an individual artist does versus what a person who views him or herself as something else does. Like, if I was only banking on what I can do in a day, I wouldn't be able to do very much. I don't think like that. I think like, what do I want to get done in a day? What do I want to get done in a day? Or, what can we do in a day? Or, how many days will it take how many people to do this thing I want to do? And I want to do it in 3 days. And it'll take 30 people. If I want to do it in a day, it'll take 50 plus 2 additional administrators, a great manager. And if we only view ourselves as an individual self, if that's what we're working with, then we make one kind of work. That is a work that is about an individual in my relationship to an object. I never said that was my practice. So I don't exactly know why I'm interested in real estate, except my daddy was a roofer. He lived in the hood. I like living in the hood and I like buildings, you know. And I like clay. I like watching things go from nothing, 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 kind of something, almost nothing. Nothing, 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 something, something, maybe really beautiful. Something, almost something, nothing, nothing, but that's still really important, nothingness. So when I feel my day getting long, I hire somebody else. I take more things off my plate that I would not want to think about. It's a very, very corporate way of thinking. But that corporate way of thinking means that I get to be more resolute in the things that I get done in a day. That I don't spend a lot of time on email because Lakeisha does. And that work, she does it better than I do. I was happy to give it to her. I don't know if she's always happy with it. She's not always happy with it. So Lakeisha needs to do other things. Do you look at emails up here? Kate is here. I'm gonna leave. I'm gonna grab somebody's put my bags in my car already that's waiting to take me to the airport to go to London tonight. And I'm not gonna say goodbye to y'all. Kate is gonna be here. And the way that Kate earns her keep is she's gonna pass out cards and she's gonna say, oh my God, it's so good to meet you. I'm Theaster studio manager. I would love to spend time, but this is my way of spending time, and then I'm out because I gotta go to my boy's wedding because that's important to me. And I'd rather pay Kate so that I don't have to think about saying bye to y'all.
So you sell that for $5 before
Is there, anybody got scissors? Tonight I'm giving it away.
Have a safe flight.
Thank you. Is it time?
Are you about to walk out right now, Warren?
I'm gonna walk out after your question.
Okay, what you were just speaking about around scale, made me think about scale in terms of the objects you make, like not just buying one house, but buying, 7 houses or 7 buildings, and the idea around collaboration, whether it's someone to check your emails or someone to help build a table. So I would love to hear you talk more about scale as a creative practice, as a life practice.
So I should also say that I feel like there are times when, I feel like, in the New York Times article, I was transparent about what my studio looks like. It's like, boom, these are all the people, I wanted to name them. That there are moments when that reveal means something. And then there are other moments when it ain't about me or them, it's about the work. And then there are moments when I need you to know that the idea of this thing is my idea, but it requires cranes and German tile makers to deliver. There are times when I want to do big things, like say to the city of Chicago, to the country, shame on you for turning your back on a certain kind of poverty. Shame on you that the only incentive that would get you to reinvest in black space is federal funding for affordable housing. And shame on you that you would take 45% of the resources sometimes that could make a much better building, but also could represent profit. And shame on a legal structure that would say that it's the mandate of a corporation that's public to get as much profit as it can to its shareholders. But there's a way in which the easiest thing to do is to just be a potter. And as soon as you give up that for a more ambitious work that might do a certain kind of good, it also comes with another kind of burden. So the burden of the studio potter alone is one kind of burden, and the burden of another kind of scale. And so my hope is that since I'm at the beginning of my artistic practice, that over years I'll get to investigate things at scales much larger than the ones I work with now, and scales that are much more intimate and quiet and private. I feel like one more. Oh, from over here. It's so nice to see my old friends here. All these Chicagoans here. And friends, new friends. Who are you?
I'm Matt. I work with Kippy.
You work with Kippy?
Yes.
What do you do with Kippy?
I just help her. She's an artist.
Right on. What's your name?
Mark Rosenthal.
Right on, Mike. Hey, Adam, what do you do?
Well, I'm a collector and I have a gallery.
Uh-huh.
Art writing as well.
Did you make your money selling art to become a collector, or did your money come from somewhere else?
I have done some of both.
Uh-huh. Were you born poor?
No.
Oh,
I want to give you back your hat.
okay. When you where's your gallery? Is it here?
Yeah,
What's your Lindemann?
yeah.
Do you guys know Lindemann's Gallery?
Yeah.
He's a reputable. Let's say, hell yeah, he reputable. Let's say, yeah. Right on. Are there museum workers here? Yeah, y'all look at each other. Where y'all from? From the Guggenheim, Googs. Hey, you know, hey, y'all know this one? She's kind of from the family. I was just in Venice. She was very peculiar. We don't have room for those things anymore. Do people in New York have sex anymore? Oh yeah. There are some more museum people over here. Where you from, Mama?
Sugar Hill Children's Museum of Art and Storytelling.
Boom! Sugar Hill. Where y'all at?
155th and St. Nicholas. We open in October.
Right on.
Housing complex, affordable housing, early childhood center, children's museum.
Are you taking over the space that would have been the Faith Ringgold Museum? Can I say that?
Yes.
See?
We're not taking over,
So I have
it's
to
the
go?
same one.
Yeah. No. Hey, I gotta go now.
You gotta
I gotta go. Hey, listen. Think about this. Think about leverage, right? Think about leverage, and think that a museum is being built at 155th at very little investment for the structure of the thing, do you have to pay for the external bricks and mortar? You're paying to have the thing built. Okay, there's a developer. How many stories is it?
It's 13 floors.
Imagine this. Is it all affordable housing?
Yes, and 20% homeless individuals and families.
Okay. Are you getting any money? Is it?
Yes, we are. We're getting, there's a huge complex.
Right.
Tax credit.
She's being shy. She's trying to say she still needs money.
Yes.
Okay, so we're not going to listen to her tonight. But what I'm saying is, sometimes if you want culture to happen, you got to went to Harvard. School of Social Entrepreneurship. Everybody's saying all their good ideas. Finish their good ideas, finish their good ideas. The professor says, where does the money come from? We all got good ideas, where does the money come from? And if the rest of the class was just thinking about how do we take our good ideas, our important works of art, and figure out how in the fuck do we make this work? And we could do it with ignorance of this stuff. Or you can say to a developer who's making their money, the developer is going to make their money on this. The money's the money is coming from the federal government for the affordable housing and the homeless piece, right? The commercial piece is kind of a wash. So it's like, we ain't gonna build it out for you, but we don't lose no money on it. And if we had a really nice first floor tenant and there was a cafe, and we know that the arts transforms communities, and there's gonna be some vibrancy